human fleet joined the war, and it was over in hours. This wasn't hyperbole or exaggeration. It was cold, hard fact. A fact that would reshape the galaxy and rewrite the future of countless civilizations. For centuries, the Galactic Alliance had waged a losing battle against the Vidian Empire. The Alliance, a coalition of diverse alien species, found itself pushed to the brink of surrender. Their worlds fell one by one to the Vidian war machine, which had already consumed 37% of the Milky Way. Hope seemed lost until a cosmic anomaly revealed an unexpected savior: Earth. Hidden behind this celestial veil, humanity had developed in isolation, unaware of the galactic conflict raging beyond their solar system. But isolation had bred innovation, and Earth's fleet stood ready, armed with technology that would shock both ally and enemy alike. Centaurian Ambassador Varys arrived on Earth with desperation etched on his alien features. He met with Admiral Jeffrey Powell of the United Earth Defense Force, a man whose initial skepticism quickly gave way to grim determination as he reviewed classified reports on the Vidian threat. Powell's weathered face hardened as he absorbed the details of entire species subjugated, worlds stripped bare, and the relentless advance of the Vidian armada towards Earth's sector. The Admiral realized that humanity's independence and very existence hung in the balance. Earth could no longer afford the luxury of isolation. For 72 tense hours, the United Earth Council debated their course of action. Voices arguing for continued isolation clashed with those demanding immediate military intervention. In the end, the weight of the threat tipped the scales. The Council voted to authorize deployment, and Admiral Powell found himself in command of an expeditionary force beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. 500 warships, each a marvel of human ingenuity, prepared for launch. Their hulls housed quantum-phase weaponry capable of bypassing conventional defenses. Impenetrable energy shields flickered to life, powered by technology that Earth had kept hidden from prying eyes. As Powell's fleet readied for departure, dire news reached Earth. The Vidians had launched a massive assault on the Alliance's core worlds. Key planets fell in rapid succession, their defenses crumbling before the onslaught. Time was running out. Admiral Powell, standing on the bridge of his flagship UES Invincible, gave the order. Launch schedules were accelerated, pre-flight checks abbreviated. Every second counted now. With a flash of energy, the human fleet pierced the veil of hyperspace, hurtling towards the heart of the conflict. They emerged at the edge of Vidian-controlled space, a force unexpected and unaccounted for in the Empire's strategic calculations. Powell's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the tactical display. In mere moments, he would unleash a plan designed to shatter the Vidian command structure and sever their supply lines. The galaxy held its breath, unaware that the next few hours would forever change the course of history. Humanity had arrived, and the war was about to end. The human fleet materialized at the fringes of Vidian-controlled space, a force as unexpected as it was formidable. Admiral Powell's eyes darted across the tactical display, absorbing every detail of the battlefield that sprawled before him. With a nod to his communications officer, he opened a channel to the fleet. All ships execute Operation Thunderbolt. Stealth Squadron, form up on the Invincible. The rest of you, make for the Proxima Centauri system. Give them hell. As acknowledgments flooded in, Powell turned to his helm officer. Take us in, nice and quiet. The UES Invincible and its escort of stealth corvettes peeled away from the main fleet, their advanced cloaking technology rendering them invisible to Vidian sensors. They slipped through the enemy's defensive lines like ghosts, approaching their first target, a massive orbital command station above a Vidian-occupied world. On the bridge of the Invincible, tension hung thick in the air. Officers spoke in hushed tones, their eyes fixed on their consoles. Powell stood at the center, a pillar of calm in the storm of activity. Weapons, status report, he ordered. Quantum phase cannons charged and locked on target, sir. Waiting for your command. Powell's lips thinned into a grim line. Fire. The Invincible shuddered as lances of energy erupted from its hull, striking the Vidian command station with devastating precision. the station's shields flickered and died, unable to withstand the onslaught of human technology. Secondary explosions bloomed across its surface, and within moments, the proud symbol of Vidian military might crumbled into space debris. "One down," Powell muttered. "Many more to go." As the Invincible and its squadron continued their surgical strikes against Vidian command centers, the main human fleet engaged the enemy armada besieging Proxima Centauri. The quantum phase weapons tore through Vidian defenses like paper, turning their once invincible warships into floating graveyards. Aboard the Alliance flagship, General Thorin watched in awe as the tide of battle shifted dramatically. His mandibles clicked in excitement as he turned to his subordinates. "Rally our forces. The humans have given us an opening. Let's make the most of it." On the Vidian command ship, Supreme Commander Zarkath received reports of the devastation with growing horror. His tentacles writhed in agitation as he barked orders to his staff. "Recall all available ships. We must crush this human interference before they undo centuries of conquest." But Admiral Powell had anticipated this move. Squadrons of nimble human fighters intercepted the Vidian reinforcements, their advanced targeting systems picking off enemy ships with surgical precision. As the battle raged across multiple star systems, Powell received an urgent transmission from Earth. His XO, Commander Elena Rodriguez, approached with a grave expression. "Sir, we've intercepted Vidian communications. They're preparing to use something called a Nova cannon against Earth." Powell's blood ran cold. He had hoped for more time before the Vidians discovered Earth's location. "What do we know about this weapon?" "Not much, sir, but based on the name and the chatter, it seems capable of destroying entire planets." The Admiral's mind raced, weighing options and calculating risks. He knew the main fleet couldn't be recalled. The Alliance still needed their support. That left only one choice. "Sir?" Rodriguez's eyes widened. "With all due respect, that's incredibly risky. We don't even know where to start looking." Powell's expression hardened. "Then we'll find out. Assemble a team of our best analysts and tactical officers. We leave in 30 minutes. As Rodriguez hurried to carry out his orders, Powell opened a channel to Captain Sarah Chen, commanding one of the fleet's carrier groups. "Sarah, I'm reassigning you as acting fleet commander. The Invincible is undertaking a critical mission, and I need someone I trust to hold the line here." Chen's holographic image nodded sharply. "Understood, Admiral. We'll keep the Vidians busy while you're gone." With preparations complete, the UES Invincible and a small task force of specialized ships broke away from the main battle. Using data gleaned from captured Vidian systems, they plotted a course for the first of 3 possible locations for the Nova cannon. As they approached the target system, Powell stood on the bridge, studying the long-range sensor data. Something about the distribution of Vidian forces nagged at him. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper, Powell's hand-picked tactical officer for this mission, leaned in to examine the display. "It could be a trap, sir. The Vidians might expect us to think exactly that." Powell nodded, acknowledging the possibility. "True, but we can't afford to ignore it. Take us in, maximum stealth. We'll do a close pass and see what our sensors can pick up." The Invincible and its escorts crept closer to the heavily guarded sector, their advanced stealth systems straining against the robust Vidian sensor net. As they neared their target, a massive space station came into view, its central sphere surrounded by a complex array of energy emitters. Before he could issue further orders, alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical officer's voice cut through the sudden chaos. "Multiple hostile contacts! We're surrounded!" Powell's mind raced as he took in the unfolding ambush. Dozens of Vidian warships decloaked around them, their weapons already charging. The element of surprise lost. He had seconds to decide their next move. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "All ships break formation and return fire." The space around them erupted in a firestorm of energy weapons and explosions. The Invincible shuddered as it absorbed hit after hit, its advanced shields straining under the assault. "Shield strength down to 60%, an officer called out. "We can't take much more of this." Powell gripped the arms of his command chair, his fist clenched. "Helm, get us out of here. Set course for—" His order was cut short as a particularly vicious barrage slammed into the Invincible. The ship lurched violently, throwing crew members to the deck. Sparks showered from ruptured conduits, and the lights flickered ominously. "Direct hit to propulsion," the damage control officer reported, her voice tight with stress. "We're losing power to the main engines." As klaxons blared and damage reports flooded in, Powell surveyed the tactical display with growing dread. The Invincible, now crippled and vulnerable, was quickly being surrounded by swarming Vidian vessels. The rest of his task force was scattered, fighting their own desperate battles against overwhelming odds. Time seemed to slow as Powell absorbed the gravity of their situation. The mission to destroy the Nova Cannon, perhaps humanity's only chance to save Earth from annihilation, now hung by a thread. With his flagship immobilized and the enemy closing in, he knew the next few moments would determine not just the fate of his crew, but potentially that of his entire species. Admiral Powell's mind raced as he surveyed the chaos unfolding around him. The Invincible shuddered again, rocked by another volley of Vidian weapons fire. Sparks erupted from a nearby console as the ship's systems strained under the assault. "Emergency repair nanites," Powell barked, his voice cutting through the din of alarms and shouted status reports. "Release them now." The ship's AI acknowledged the command, and within seconds, swarms of microscopic robots flooded through the Invincible's damaged sections. Powell watched the damage control display with intense focus as the nanites went to work, their progress marked by a sea of red indicators, slowly shifting to yellow, then green. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper approached, his face grim but determined. "Admiral, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." Powell nodded for him to continue. "We can use our quantum phase technology to create a temporary bubble around the ship," Harper explained rapidly. "It'll put us out of sync with normal space-time. Their weapons won't be able to touch us." "Do it," Powell ordered. "And Helm, stand by for my mark. The moment we phase, I want full power to engines." Harper rushed to implement his plan while the rest of the bridge crew tensed in anticipation. The tactical display showed the ring of Vidian ships tightening around them, their weapon signatures growing more intense by the second. "Nanite repair of propulsion systems complete," the AI announced. "Phase shift ready, sir," Harper reported, his hand poised over the activation control. The Invincible shimmered, its outline blurring as it slipped partially out of phase with reality. On the screen, the incoming Vidian energy blast passed harmlessly through the ship's ghostly form. "Now," Powell shouted, "full power to engines!" The ship lurched forward, its newly repaired propulsion systems roaring to life. They burst through the Vidian formation, leaving confusion in their wake as enemy sensors struggled to track their semi-phased vessel. "Regroup with the task force," Powell commanded, "and prepare to counterattack." As the Invincible rejoined its escorts, Powell orchestrated a swift and brutal assault on the ambush fleet. Human ships danced between lumbering Vidian cruisers, their quantum phase weapons tearing through enemy defenses with terrifying efficiency. In the midst of the battle, Powell spotted an opportunity. "There," he pointed to a Vidian command ship trying to retreat from the melee. "Disable that vessel. We need the intel it carries." A squadron of human fighters swarmed the target, their precision strikes crippling its engines and weapons. Within minutes, boarding parties had secured the ship and its invaluable databanks. With the immediate threat neutralized, Powell ordered a tactical retreat to a nearby star system devoid of habitable planets. As they regrouped, analysts pored over the captured Vidian intelligence. "Sir," a young lieutenant approached Powell, her eyes wide with excitement. "We've confirmed the location of the Nova Cannon. It's housed in that massive space station we detected earlier." Powell nodded, unsurprised. "What else?" "There's a vulnerability, sir. The weapon draws an enormous amount of power. After each shot, there's a window where the station's defenses are significantly weakened." A plan began to form in Powell's mind, but before he could fully develop it, another officer interrupted with urgent news. "Admiral, we've intercepted Vidian communications. Supreme Commander Zarkath has taken personal command of the Nova Cannon Station." The officer shook his head. "No, sir. He's accompanied by his daughter, Lyranath. She's apparently one of the lead scientists behind the Nova Cannon's development. Powell turned to Harper. Jack, I need you to assemble an infiltration team. Your mission will be to board that station, sabotage the Nova Cannon, and if possible, capture Zarkath and his daughter. Harper nodded, his expression a mix of persistence and apprehension. Yes, sir. I'll get right on it. As Harper left to prepare his team, Powell focused on planning the main assault. They would need to hit the station hard and fast, creating the diversion necessary for the infiltration team to slip aboard unnoticed. Hours later, as the task force made final preparations, a young sergeant approached Harper. She saluted crisply, her dark eyes sharp and alert. Sergeant Maya Chen reporting for duty, sir. Harper looked up from his tactical display, surprised. Chen? Any relation to Captain Sarah Chen? Maya nodded. She's my older sister, sir. As Harper briefed Maya on the intricacies of their mission, Powell received an urgent communication from the main fleet. Captain Sarah Chen's holographic image appeared before him, her expression grave. Admiral, we've achieved victory at Proxima Centauri, but Vidian reinforcements are massing for a counterattack. We need the fleet back here to secure our gains. Powell's teeth clenched as he absorbed the news. He now faced an impossible choice. Press on with the assault on the Nova Cannon, risking everything on a potentially war-ending strike, or return to support the main fleet and secure their hard-won territories. War and secure the future of humanity. Captain Chen, Powell said, his voice firm with commitment, hold your position at Proxima Centauri. Prepare for a defensive stance against the incoming Vidian reinforcements. We're going after the Nova Cannon. As the transmission ended, Powell turned to his bridge crew. All ships, battle stations. We're launching our assault on the Nova Cannon station. The task force surged forward, an arrow of sleek human vessels cutting through the void. As they approached the massive space station, Powell's tactical display lit up with enemy contacts. Commence attack pattern Omega, Powell ordered. Draw their attention. Give Harper's team the opening they need. The human ships fanned out, engaging the station's outer defenses with a barrage of quantum torpedoes and phased energy beams. Vidian fighters swarmed from launch bays, filling space with crisscrossing weapons fire. Aboard a captured Vidian shuttle, Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper and his infiltration team watched the battle unfold through the cockpit viewport. Sergeant Maya Chen sat at the controls, her fingers dancing over the alien interface. Ready for insertion, sir, she reported, her voice steady despite the stakes. Harper nodded. Take us in, Sergeant. Nice and easy. The shuttle slipped through the chaotic melee, its Vidian IFF codes allowing it to pass unchallenged through the station's security perimeter. With practiced precision, Maya guided the craft to a maintenance airlock on the station's underside. Breach point secured, Harper announced over the encrypted comm channel. We're going in. On the Invincible's bridge, Powell acknowledged the transmission with a grim nod. Intensify our attack on the station's northern quadrant. Keep them focused on us. The infiltration team moved swiftly through the station's winding corridors, their path cleared by Maya's expert hacking of the internal security systems. They encountered only token resistance, maintenance drones and the occasional security patrol, easily neutralized. Sir, Maya whispered as they approached a heavily fortified door, I'm picking up multiple life signs beyond this point. One of them matches the biosignature we have on file for Lyranath. Harper's grip tightened on his phaser rifle. This is it, team. Breaching in 3, 2, 1. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Harper's team poured through the opening, their weapons tracking across the room. A group of Vidian scientists scrambled for cover, but one figure stood her ground, a tall, regal-looking female with distinctive cranial ridges. Lyranath, Harper called out, his weapon trained on her. Surrender now. This station is lost. For a moment, Lyranath's eyes darted to a nearby console. Then, surprisingly, she raised her hands. I yield, human. There has been enough destruction. Harper's blood ran cold. He turned to Maya. Can you disable the weapon from here? She was already at a control panel, her fingers flying over the alien interface. I can try, sir, but it'll take time we don't have. Harper made a split-second decision. Rawlings, Peterson, get Liranath and the other prisoners back to the shuttle. Sergeant Chen and I will finish the job here. On the Invincible's bridge, Powell stood resolute as his ship faced down the massive barrel of the Nova cannon. Status of the infiltration team, he demanded. Still working to disable the weapon, sir, his comms officer reported. But we're picking up a massive energy buildup in the station. They're about to fire. Powell's hands gripped the arms of his command chair. Hold position. Harper won't let us down. Inside the station, Harper and Maya raced against time, rerouting power conduits and overloading critical systems. Just as the Nova cannon reached full charge, Maya slammed her hand down on a final control. Got it, she shouted. We've created a feedback loop in the main emitter. The station shuddered as the Nova cannon activated. A blinding beam of energy lanced out towards the Invincible, but halfway there, it destabilized, twisting back on itself. The backlash tore through the station, ripping bulkheads apart and sending cascading explosions through its superstructure. Time to go, Harper yelled, grabbing Maya's arm and sprinting for their escape route. They fought their way through collapsing corridors and fires, finally reaching their shuttle moments before the docking clamps failed. As they pulled away from the disintegrating station, a sleek vessel shot past them, Zarkath's personal ship, attempting a desperate escape. Before their eyes, it was engulfed in the final cataclysmic explosion of the Nova cannon station. In the aftermath of the battle, Powell received reports from across the sector. The Vidian fleets, leaderless and demoralized, were in full retreat. At Proxima Centauri, Sarah Chen confirmed that the enemy reinforcements had turned tail and fled. As the human ships regrouped, tending to their wounded and assessing the damage, Powell turned his attention to their unexpected prisoner. Liranath sat in the Invincible's conference room, her posture proud despite her circumstances. You've defeated us, Admiral, she said as Powell entered. What happens now? Powell took a seat across from her. That depends in part on you. With your father gone and your fleets in disarray, you may be in a unique position to help bring this war to an end. Liranath's eyes narrowed, considering, and why would I do that? As Liranath pondered his words, reports continued to flood in from across human space. The stunning victory achieved in mere hours had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The balance of power had shifted, and Earth now stood as a force to be reckoned with in the cosmic arena. But even as the immediate danger passed, Powell knew that the real work was just beginning. Negotiations, reconstruction, and the forging of a lasting peace lay ahead. And somewhere out in the vast reaches of space, remnants of the once mighty Vidian fleet still lurked, nursing their wounds and perhaps plotting revenge. The pivotal battle was won, but the future remained uncertain. As Powell prepared for the challenging days ahead, he couldn't help but wonder what new threats or opportunities awaited humanity among the stars. Admiral Powell stood before the observation window, his gaze fixed on the swirling nebula beyond. The destruction of the Nova cannon had marked a turning point, but the war was a long way to go. He turned as the door slid open, revealing two security officers escorting Liranath into the room. Leave us, Powell ordered. The officers saluted and exited, leaving the Admiral alone with the Vidian scientist. Liranath's posture remained proud, but her eyes betrayed a hint of uncertainty. Powell gestured to a chair. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. As she took her seat, Powell activated a holographic display of the known galaxy. You understand your position, Liranath. Your cooperation could save countless lives on both sides. She studied the map, her fingers tracing the boundaries of Vidian space. What do you want to know, Admiral? Everything, Powell replied, starting with the vulnerabilities in your Empire's defenses. For hours, Liranath spoke. She detailed the locations of hidden outposts, the weaknesses in Vidian shield harmonics, and the internal power struggles that had been tearing at the Empire's foundations. But it was when she mentioned the primary shipyards that Powell's interest peaked. Powell leaned forward, his voice low and intense. And if we were to strike there? A flicker of conflict passed over Liranath's face. It would be devastating. But Admiral, I must ask, what is your ultimate goal here? To end this war? Powell answered, without hesitation, with as little further bloodshed as possible. Liranath's shoulders sagged, as if a great weight had settled upon them. Then perhaps our goals align more than I initially thought. I've seen enough destruction, Admiral. My people, we were not always like this. Our expansion began as a desperate attempt to find resources to save our dying world. But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of who we were. Powell studied her carefully, weighing the sincerity in her words. And now? Now, Liranath said, meeting his gaze, I believe it's time for change. I'll help you, Admiral. Not just with information, but with ending this conflict once and for all. As Liranath continued to provide crucial intelligence, Powell set plans in motion. He summoned Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper to his ready room, outlining a daring mission. Jack, I need you to lead a covert operation, Powell explained, bringing up schematics of the Vidian shipyards. We have a chance to deal a crippling blow to their war effort, but it requires your expertise. Harper studied the plans, his mind already formulating strategies. It won't be easy, sir. Security will be tight. That's why I'm giving you carte blanche to assemble your team, Powell replied. Choose the best of the best. Harper nodded, a determined glint in his eye. I know just where to start. Within hours, Harper had assembled an elite squad. At the top of his list was Sergeant Maya Chen, whose mastery of alien technology had proven invaluable during the Nova Cannon mission. Sergeant Chen reporting for duty, sir, Maya said, saluting crisply as she entered the briefing room. Harper returned the salute. At ease, Sergeant. We've got a hell of a job ahead of us. As Harper outlined the mission parameters, Maya's eyes widened. We're going to infiltrate the primary Vidian shipyards? Sir, with all due respect, that's suicide. That's why we're not going in as ourselves, Harper replied with a grim smile. He gestured to a nearby hangar where a sleek Vidian vessel sat. We'll be using this captured ship to slip past their defenses. Maya's expression shifted from disbelief to grit. Understood, sir. I'll start familiarizing myself with their systems immediately. While Harper's team prepared for their covert operation, Admiral Powell coordinated a massive assault across multiple fronts. The Bridge of the Invincible buzzed with activity as reports flooded in from Allied forces. Sir, the Arcturus fleet is in position, a young lieutenant reported. They're awaiting your signal to begin their attack on the Vidian outpost in the Deneb sector. Powell nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Tell them to commence operations and get me a status update on the Sirius task force. As the human fleet, bolstered by grateful alliance members, launched simultaneous attacks on key Vidian installations, the element of surprise proved devastating. Vidian commanders, caught off guard by the sudden, multi-pronged assault, struggled to mount an effective defense. Back on Earth, the United Earth Council convened in an emergency session. Holographic displays showed the rapid progress of the offensive, with human and allied ships pushing deep into Vidian territory. Council President Elena Rodriguez addressed her colleagues, her voice filled with cautious optimism. The reports are clear. Our forces are achieving unprecedented success against the Vidian Empire. I propose we authorize the immediate deployment of our second wave. After a brief but intense debate, the motion passed. A new armada of human ships, outfitted with cutting-edge weapons and defensive systems, prepared to join the fray. As the battle raged across the stars, Harper's team approached the Vidian shipyards in their captured vessel. Maya sat at the controls, her fingers dancing over the alien interface with practiced ease. Harper took a deep breath. This is it. Send the codes Liranath provided, and may whatever gods are out there be on our side. Tense seconds ticked by as they waited for a response. Finally, a gruff Vidian voice crackled over the comm. Clearance accepted. Proceed to Docking Bay 7 for inspection. As they maneuvered towards the assigned bay, Harper turned to his team. Remember, we're here to overload the power core and get out. Stay focused, stay alert, and if things go sideways, we improvise. The team nodded grimly, checking their weapons one last time as the ship touched down in the cavernous docking bay. As the airlock hissed open They stepped into the heart of the Vidian war machine, their mission and the hope of the universe hanging in the balance. "Inspection team," Harper said smoothly in flawless Vidian, the result of hours of intensive language training. "We're here to check the new propulsion systems." The lead guard studied them suspiciously. "I wasn't informed of any inspection." Maya stepped forward, her fingers dancing over a datapad. "It's a surprise inspection, ordered directly by High Command. See for yourself." As the guard leaned in to examine the forged orders, Harper tensed, ready to strike if their cover was blown. After an agonizing moment, the guard nodded. "Everything seems to be in order. Proceed." The team moved swiftly through the shipyard, their Vidian uniforms allowing them to blend in seamlessly. As they approached a junction, Harper held up a hand, signaling a halt. He tapped his ear, enhanced by a subdermal translator, and listened to the chatter of nearby workers. "HFY increased security due to recent attacks," one voice said. "They're saying humans might try to infiltrate key facilities." Harper exchanged a look with Maya. Their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. The team split up, moving with purpose through the sprawling complex. Maya found an unattended engineering station and got to work, her fingers flying over the alien interface as she bypassed security protocols and delved deep into the shipyard systems. Harper led the others to the first target, a massive power coupling that supplied energy to the construction bays. As they worked to plant the explosives, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. "Almost there," her voice crackled over the comm. "Just need a few more minutes to crack their final firewall." "We don't have a few more minutes," Harper replied, his voice tense as he heard the pounding of boots approaching. "Everyone, fighting positions!" The team took cover behind equipment and structural supports as Vidian security forces poured into the area. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, leaving scorch marks on the walls and floor. Harper leaned out from behind a pillar, his weapon spitting precise bursts that dropped 2 Vidians in quick succession. But for every enemy that fell, 2 more seemed to take their place. "We're cut off from the extraction point," one of Harper's team shouted over the din of battle. Harper gritted his teeth, assessing their increasingly dire situation. They were outnumbered and outgunned, with more Vidian reinforcements surely on the way. Just as he was about to order a desperate charge, Maya's triumphant voice came over the comm. "Got it. Defense systems are ours." Suddenly, the shipyard's internal defenses sprang to life. Automated turrets swiveled and opened fire on the Vidian security forces, catching them completely by surprise. Force fields sprang up, cutting off avenues of approach and trapping groups of enemies in confined spaces. "Everyone on board now," Harper ordered, laying down covering fire as his team scrambled up the ramp. Maya threw herself into the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls as she initiated the launch sequence. The ship lifted off just as the docking bay doors began to close, squeezing through the narrowing gap with mere inches to spare. As they accelerated away from the shipyards, the team watched in awe as the massive complex was consumed by a series of devastating explosions. The main reactor went critical, unleashing a blinding flash that momentarily overloaded their view screens. When the light faded, all that remained of the once mighty shipyards was an expanding cloud of debris. "Mission accomplished," Harper said softly, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction before turning his attention to their escape. "Maya, set course for the rendezvous point. Let's hope the Admiral's plan worked as well as ours." Across the sector, Admiral Powell stood on the bridge of the Invincible, watching the tactical display as reports flooded in from multiple fronts. The daring strategy of keeping pressure on Vidian forces while trusting in the strength of the Alliance's defenses was paying off. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Vidian counterattack near the Alliance homeworld has stalled. Our new defensive systems are holding, and Alliance forces are pushing back." Powell nodded, a grim smile on his face. "And the shipyards?" As if in answer, a burst of static came over the comm, followed by Harper's voice. "Mission successful, Admiral. The shipyards are destroyed." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, quickly silenced by Powell's raised hand. "Excellent work, Commander. Return to base for debrief. There's much more to be done." Even as he spoke, Powell's mind was already racing ahead to the next phase of the war. The destruction of the shipyards was a crippling blow to the Vidian war machine, but he knew better than to underestimate their ability to adapt. His thoughts were interrupted by his communications officer. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Vidian space. It's a request for a ceasefire." Powell's eyebrows rose in surprise. Could this be the breakthrough they'd been hoping for? Or was it a Vidian ploy to buy time and regroup? "Put it through to my ready room," he ordered, striding off the bridge. As the door slid shut behind him, Powell took a deep breath, steeling himself for what could be the most crucial negotiation of his career. "Admiral Powell," the Vidian began, "I am Counselor Thrax of the Vidian High Command. In light of recent developments, we wish to discuss terms of surrender." Powell kept his expression neutral, even as his mind raced with the implications. "I'm listening, Counselor." As Thrax outlined the proposed ceasefire in the Vidian desire for peace talks, Powell allowed himself a moment of cautious optimism. Perhaps the end of this long and costly war was finally in sight. But even as he began to contemplate the logistics of the peace negotiations, a priority alert flashed on his screen. Powell's blood ran cold as he read the message, detailing a new threat that could unravel everything they'd fought for. A rogue Vidian admiral named Krovac had seized control of a hidden superweapon, threatening to destabilize entire star systems unless the Alliance and human forces withdrew completely. Powell's teeth gritted as he realized the complexity of the situation he now faced. He would need to navigate the delicate peace talks while simultaneously dealing with this new, potentially catastrophic threat. As he prepared to respond to Counselor Thrax, Powell's mind was already formulating a plan. He would need Harper and his team again, for perhaps their most dangerous mission yet, and he would have to trust in the diplomatic skills of his staff to keep the peace process on track while they dealt with this new crisis. The war might be nearing its end, but the most crucial battles, both on the battlefield and at the negotiating table, were yet to come. Admiral Powell's mind raced as he processed the new threat. He quickly formulated a plan, dividing his resources to address multiple crises simultaneously. "Counselor Thrax," Powell said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his thoughts, "I appreciate your willingness to discuss peace. However, we've just received intelligence about a rogue element within your military. Before we proceed, I need assurances that you have full control over your forces." Thrax's expression darkened. "You speak of Admiral Krovac. He and his loyalists have become problematic. We no longer consider them part of the Vidian military." Powell nodded, seeing an opportunity. "Then perhaps we can work together to neutralize this threat. In the meantime, I suggest we continue our discussions through secure channels." After ending the transmission, Powell immediately contacted Lieutenant Commander Harper. "Commander, I have a new mission for you and your team. There's a Vidian superweapon installation in the galactic core. Your objective is to infiltrate, disable the weapon, and neutralize Admiral Krovac's extremist faction." Harper's voice came back, clear and determined. "Understood, sir. We'll get it done." Next, Powell reached out to Captain Sarah Chen. "Captain, I need you to investigate that hidden Vidian research facility you discovered. We need more information about the genetic degradation affecting the Vidian species. It could be crucial for our negotiations." "Yes, Admiral," Chen replied. "I'll depart immediately." With his top operatives dispatched, Powell turned his attention to the diplomatic front. He would personally oversee the peace talks, using the information about the Vidians' genetic crisis as leverage. "The facility's defenses are like nothing we've seen before," Maya reported, her eyes scanning holographic schematics. "But I think I can create a bypass using a combination of Vidian encryption keys we've collected and some creative coding." Harper nodded, trusting in Maya's skills. "Do what you need to do. We'll handle the rest once we're inside." As their ship approached the installation, cloaked by advanced stealth technology, Harper briefed his team one last time. "Remember, our primary objective is to disable the weapon. Krovac is secondary. Stay alert, stay alive, and let's end this war." They docked with the station, Maya's hacking skills allowing them to slip past the initial security checkpoints undetected. But as they moved deeper into the facility, alarms blared. So much for the element of surprise, Harper muttered, drawing his weapon. Defensive positions. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as Krovak's loyalists converged on their position. Harper's team fought back with precision and coordination honed through countless missions. They pushed forward, leaving a trail of disabled security systems and incapacitated Vidians in their wake. As they neared the weapons control center, Harper spotted a figure he recognized from intelligence briefings. Admiral Krovak stood before a massive control panel, his fingers dancing across the interface. "You're too late, human," Krovak snarled, noticing Harper. "The weapon is primed and locked onto multiple Alliance worlds. In moments, your precious coalition will be reduced to cosmic dust." Harper raised his weapon, but Krovak was already moving, diving behind a console as energy bolts scorched the air where he had stood. "Maya!" Harper shouted over the comm. "We need that weapon offline now." "Working on it," Maya's voice came back, strained with concentration. "The encryption is adaptive. Every time I break through a layer, 2 more appear." Harper ducked as return fire from Krovak's position nearly took his head off. He knew they were running out of time. Across the galaxy, Captain Sarah Chen's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the coordinates of the hidden Vidian research facility. As they approached, her sensors picked up unusual radiation readings. "That's odd," Chen murmured, studying the data. "Those energy signatures, they're similar to what we've seen in Vidian territories, but far more concentrated." As her team began their investigation, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of a major discovery. Back on Earth, Admiral Powell sat across from a delegation of moderate Vidian leaders. The tension in the room was palpable as he laid out his proposal. "We know about the genetic crisis your people are facing," Powell said, his voice calm but firm. "We're prepared to offer our scientific expertise to help find a cure. In exchange, we require a complete cessation of hostilities and full cooperation in dismantling your military infrastructure." The Vidian delegates exchanged glances, a mix of surprise and desperation in their eyes. They hadn't expected the humans to know about their most closely guarded secret. As discussions continued, Powell received updates from both Harper and Chen. The situation was balanced on a knife's edge, with the hope of the universe hanging in the balance. In the superweapon installation, Harper's team had fought their way to the main control room. Maya's fingers flew across the alien interface, racing against time to disarm the weapon. "Got it!" she exclaimed triumphantly. "Weapon systems are offline!" But their victory was short-lived. Krovak, his eyes wild with fury, activated a hidden control. "If I can't have victory, I'll settle for taking you with me. This entire installation will be vaporized in 5 minutes." Harper charged at the Vidian admiral, tackling him just as he reached for a weapon. The two grappled fiercely, each knowing that the outcome of their personal battle could shape the future of the galaxy. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Harper pinned Krovak to the ground. "It's over," he growled, securing the rogue admiral's hands behind his back. "You're coming with us to answer for your crimes." As Harper's team raced back to their ship, dragging the captured Krovak with them, the installation began to tear itself apart. They barely cleared the docking bay before a massive explosion consumed the facility, the shockwave buffeting their ship as Maya piloted them to safety. Catching his breath, Harper opened a channel to Admiral Powell. "Mission accomplished, sir. The weapon is destroyed, and we have Krovak in custody." Powell's voice came back, tight with emotion. "Excellent work, Commander. Return to base immediately. The situation here is developing rapidly." As Harper's team set course for Earth, Captain Chen made a breakthrough at the Vidian research facility. Her analysis confirmed that the genetic degradation affecting the Vidians was indeed caused by prolonged exposure to a rare form of radiation present in their territories. "This explains everything," Chen realized, her mind racing with the implications. Their aggressive expansion, the desperate need for new worlds, they were trying to outrun their own extinction. She quickly transmitted her findings to Admiral Powell, knowing this information could be the key to lasting peace. Armed with this crucial data, Powell pressed his advantage in the negotiations. "We can help you relocate your populations to safer regions," he offered, We have the technology and resources to make it happen. In return, we ask for an immediate end to the war and the complete dismantling of your military machine." As news of the ceasefire spread, cheers erupted on ships and planets across the galaxy. But Admiral Powell knew that the real work was just beginning. The task of relocating millions of Vidians and ensuring a lasting peace would be monumental. He turned to his staff, his voice filled with commitment. "Contact the Alliance leadership. We need to begin discussions on restructuring the galactic political landscape. This is our chance to build a foundation for long-term stability." As Powell prepared to address the United Earth Council and report on the war's conclusion, he couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had emerged as a key player in interstellar affairs, and the challenges ahead would test them in ways they could scarcely imagine. But for now, as the first joint teams of human and Vidian scientists began their work on finding a cure for the genetic degradation, there was hope. Hope for a future where cooperation and understanding would replace conflict and fear. Admiral Powell's address to the United Earth Council marked a turning point in galactic history. As the applause faded, he wasted no time in setting the wheels of peace in motion. Within days, he initiated the implementation of the Vidian Relocation Plan, a monumental undertaking that would come to be known as Project Exodus. A joint task force of human and alliance ships assembled, forming an armada unlike any seen before in peacetime. The scale of the operation was staggering. Millions of Vidians needed to be safely transported to regions free from the harmful radiation that had plagued their species for generations. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper found himself at the heart of this massive endeavor. Admiral Powell had personally assigned him to oversee the security and logistics of a major Vidian colony transfer. As he stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, Harper watched the swarm of transport ships and escort vessels stretching out before him. "Status report," he called out, his eyes scanning the holographic displays surrounding him. A young ensign responded promptly, "Sir, the first wave of transports is ready for departure. We're just waiting on final clearance from Vidian authorities." Harper nodded, then turned as the ship's communication officer spoke up. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Vidian liaison." "Put it through," Harper ordered. The holographic display flickered, and a familiar face appeared, Lyra Nath, the Vidian scientist who had played a crucial role in ending the conflict. Her elongated features were set in a look of drive. "Commander Harper," she greeted him, her voice carrying a hint of its characteristic rasp. "I'm pleased to inform you that we've completed the final checks on our end. The colonists are ready for transport." As the first wave of transports began their journey, Harper found himself working closely with Lyra Nath. Their initial interactions were purely professional, focused on the myriad challenges of moving an entire civilization. But as the days turned into weeks, Harper found himself increasingly drawn to the Vidian scientist's brilliant mind and unwavering dedication. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Captain Sarah Chen led a team of human and Vidian scientists aboard a specially outfitted space station. The station buzzed with activity as researchers worked tirelessly to develop a treatment for the genetic degradation affecting the Vidian species. Chen stood before a holographic representation of the Vidian genome, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Dr. Voss," she called out to her Vidian counterpart, "I think we're onto something here. Look at this sequence." Dr. Voss, a Vidian geneticist with deep-set eyes and mottled skin, moved to join her. His eyes widened as he examined the data. "Incredible," he breathed. "The combination of gene therapy and synthesized radiation, it's actually reversing the degradation at a cellular level." Chen nodded, a spark of excitement in her eyes. "We need to run more tests, but I think we might have our breakthrough." Recognizing the need for a new galactic governance structure in this changing landscape, Admiral Powell proposed the formation of the Interstellar Cooperative Council, ICC. The idea was met with enthusiasm from most parties, though some former alliance members expressed reservations about including the Vidians. Powell addressed these concerns head-on during a meeting with alliance representatives. "I understand your hesitation," he said, his voice firm but empathetic. "But if we're to move forward, we must do so together. The Vidians have as much stake in maintaining peace as we do." As discussions about the ICC continued, complications arose in the ongoing relocation efforts. Reports reached Admiral Powell of a group of Vidian colonies in the outer regions refusing to be moved, citing fears of losing their cultural identity. Powell's brow furrowed as he read the report. He knew this situation could potentially destabilize the fragile peace they had worked so hard to achieve. After a moment's consideration, he made a decision. "Get me Lieutenant Commander Harper," he ordered his aide. When Harper's holographic image appeared before him, Powell wasted no time. "Jack, I have a new assignment for you. I need you and Dr. Liranath to negotiate with the reluctant colonies in the outer regions. Your combined human-Vidian perspective might be just what we need to broker a compromise." Harper nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll do our best, sir." As Harper and Liranath prepared for their diplomatic mission, the United Earth Council on Earth found itself embroiled in heated debates about humanity's new role in galactic affairs. Counselor Elena Rodriguez stood before her peers, her voice passionate. "We have an unprecedented opportunity for expansion. We should seize it while we can." But others, like Counselor Takashi Yamamoto, urged caution. "We must be careful not to overextend ourselves. Our primary focus should be on consolidating our current position and ensuring the success of the ICC." After days of intense discussion, the Council approved a measured expansion plan, focusing on establishing human presence in strategic locations across the galaxy. Back on the research station, Captain Chen's team began the first large-scale trial of the Vidian genetic treatment. Thousands of Vidian volunteers underwent the procedure, their hopes riding on the outcome. Chen watched anxiously as the first group emerged from the treatment chambers. A Vidian woman stepped forward, her skin noticeably clearer, her breathing easier. She looked at her hands in wonder, then up at Chen with tears in her eyes. As Chen's team collected data on the treatment's effectiveness, a new development caught the attention of the highest levels of Earth's military command. Long-range scout ships had detected unusual energy signatures from beyond the galaxy's edge, hinting at the possibility of an unknown extragalactic civilization. Admiral Powell stood before a classified briefing, his face grave as he addressed a select group of military and scientific leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may be facing a situation that will redefine our understanding of the galaxy and our place in it. I'm initiating a classified program to investigate this potential threat or opportunity. We're calling it Operation Horizon." The room buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. As the briefing concluded, Powell gazed out at the stars visible through the station's viewport. Humanity had come so far, achieving peace with the Vidians and establishing itself as a major galactic power. But he knew that the challenges ahead might dwarf anything they had faced before. With the Vidian conflict, grit, and new frontiers beckoning, humanity stood at the threshold of a new era. The successes achieved through military might, diplomatic skill, and scientific innovation had propelled Earth to the forefront of galactic affairs. But as Powell contemplated the unknown lurking beyond the galactic edge, he realized that their greatest tests might still lie ahead. As the classified details of Operation Horizon were disseminated to key personnel, Harper and Liranath's ship approached the outer Vidian colonies. The fate of the fragile peace they had worked so hard to achieve hung in the balance, and the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what challenges and discoveries the future would bring. The fate of the fragile peace they had worked so hard to achieve hung in the balance, and the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what challenges and discoveries the future would unfold. But the future arrived sooner than anyone expected. Just as Project Exodus hit its stride and the Interstellar Cooperative Council began to take shape, a crisis erupted that threatened to unravel everything they had accomplished. Admiral Powell's holocom crackled to life, projecting the image of a grim-faced intelligence officer. "Sir, we have a situation. A group of former Vidian military officers has hijacked a fleet of colony ships. They're holding thousands of civilians hostage." Powell's fist tight. "Details now." "The rogue faction is led by Commander Vextor, sir. They're demanding the return of key Vidian territories and threatening to destroy the ships if we don't comply." Powell absorbed the information, his mind already racing through potential strategies. "Where's Harper?" "En route back from the outer colonies, sir. ETA 3 hours. Redirect him immediately. I want him leading this rescue operation. Change of plans, he said, his voice taut. We're being redirected to handle a hostage situation. Lyranath's elongated features contorted with concern. Hostages? Who? Your people. A rogue Vidian faction has hijacked colony ships. The Vidian scientist's eyes widen. By the ancestors. Jack, those ships, they carry more than just civilians. The prototype terraforming equipment is on board, Harper finished. I know. That's why we need to move fast. As their ship altered course, Harper began assembling his team. He called in Sergeant Maya Chen, a tech specialist whose expertise would be crucial for the mission ahead. Meanwhile, on the ICC headquarters station, heated debates erupted among member representatives. The Vidian delegate, his face etched with worry, pleaded for a diplomatic approach. We cannot risk the lives of so many innocents. The Rigelian ambassador smacked his fist on the table. We must show strength. A military strike could result in a massacre, interrupted the Terran representative. We need a surgical approach. As the arguments raged on, Captain Sarah Chen's voice cut through the clamor. The holographic projection of the research station's lead scientist appeared before the council. Honored representatives, she began, her voice steady despite the urgency in her eyes. We've made a critical discovery in our genetic research. The treatment for Vidian degradation can be enhanced using a rare mineral, a mineral found only in the territories now controlled by the rogue faction. Aboard Harper's ship, now racing towards the coordinates of the hijacked fleet, Lyranath pored over schematics of Vidian colony vessels. The life support systems are our best entry point, she explained, pointing to a holographic display. But we'll need to disable their shields first. Sergeant Chen, her fingers dancing over a console, looked up. I think I can help with that. If we can get close enough, I can deploy a targeted EMP burst. Harper nodded, then froze as new data streamed in. We've got a problem. They're near a pulsar. The radiation... Harper's mind raced, then an idea struck. The pulsar. We can use it. Maya, can you synchronize an EMP burst with the pulsar's electromagnetic pulses? As they finalized their plan, a secure transmission came through from Admiral Powell. Harper listened intently, his expression growing more serious by the second. Understood, sir, he said finally. We'll do our best to take him alive. Lyranath looked at him quizzically. Harper explained, Vextor has information about hidden Vidian military assets. If we can capture him, it could prevent future threats to the peace. The ship dropped out of FTL, the pulsar's eerie glow dominating the view screen. Before them, the hijacked colony ships hung in space, their hulls reflecting the rhythmic flashes of the stellar phenomenon. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Chen's fingers flew over her console, her face a mask of concentration as she synced their systems with the pulsar's pulses. Lyranath stood ready at the navigation controls, her eyes darting between the schematics and the view of the colony ships. A wave of electromagnetic energy surged from their ship, perfectly timed with a pulse from the pulsar. The combined force slammed into the rogue fleet. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then one by one, the shields of the hijacked ships flickered and died. We're in! Lyranath exclaimed, her hands already guiding their ship towards the nearest airlock. Harper turned to his team. Remember, our priority is the hostages. But if you get a shot at Vextor, take it. Let's move. They boarded the lead colony ship, the corridors eerily silent save for the distant sound of panicked voices. Harper led the way, his weapon at the ready, while Lyranath guided them through the labyrinthine passages. Suddenly, a group of rogue Vidians rounded a corner. Harper reacted instantly, firing a stun blast that dropped two of them. Lyranath and Chen took out the others in a brief, intense firefight. As they pressed on, Chen's comm unit crackled. Sir, she said, her voice tense, I'm picking up energy readings consistent with explosives. They've rigged the ship. Harper's mind raced. They needed to find the hostages, secure Vexator, and now disarm bombs, all while the pulsar's radiation ticked away at their safe exposure time. Maya, can you locate the detonators? As Chen set up a makeshift command post, Harper and Liranath raced deeper into the ship. They disabled the first two bombs, Liranath's steady hands disconnecting the right wires under Harper's cover. They were approaching the bridge when Chen's voice came through their comms. "Sir, I've isolated Vextor's command ship. He's cut off from the rest of the fleet." "Good work," Harper replied. "Any sign of—" His words were cut off as the ship lurched violently. Warning klaxons blared to life. "The pulsar!" Liranath shouted over the noise. "Its activity is spiking!" They burst onto the bridge to find chaos. Vextor stood at the helm, his face a mask of desperation as he tried to regain control of the ship. The view screen showed the other colony ships starting to drift, caught in the pulsar's intensifying gravity well. Harper raised his weapon. "It's over, Vextor. Surrender now, and we can save these people." The Vidian commander turned, his eyes wild. "Save them? You've doomed us all. Our only hope was to reclaim our strength, our rightful place in the galaxy." "Your place is with your people," Liranath interjected, her voice firm. "The people on these ships who will die if we don't act now." For a moment, Vextor hesitated. Harper saw the conflict in his eyes, the weight of thousands of lives pressing down on him. Then the ship rocked again, more violently this time. Cracks began to appear in the view screen as the pulsar's radiation intensified. Harper knew they were out of time. The lives of everyone on the hijacked fleet, the future of human-Vidian relations, and the stability of the newly formed Interstellar Cooperative Council all hung in the balance. In that fraction of a second, Harper made his choice. "Chen," he barked into his comm, "redirect all available power to the shields. Every ship now." Chen's voice crackled back, strained but determined. "On it, sir." Harper turned to Liranath, who was already moving towards the ship's main control panel. "Can you extend our shields to cover the other vessels?" Outside, the pulsar's activity surged to critical levels. The view screen cracked further, spiderwebbing across its surface as the ship groaned under the intensifying gravitational forces. Harper felt the deck plates vibrate beneath his feet as Chen rerouted power. The shield generators whined, pushed to their limits. Liranath's face was a mask of concentration as she worked to synchronize the protective fields. Vextor lunged for a nearby console. "You'll kill us all!" Harper reacted instantly, tackling the Vidian commander. They crashed to the floor, grappling fiercely as the ship bucked and heaved around them. Harper felt a sharp pain as Vextor's elbow connected with his ribs, but he didn't relent. She didn't respond, her attention fully focused on the shield controls. Harper caught a glimpse of the view screen as he struggled with Vextor. The other colony ships were drifting dangerously close, caught in the pulsar's intensifying pull. Suddenly, a shimmering energy field blossomed around their vessel, expanding rapidly to encompass the entire fleet. The shield pulsed and wavered, straining against the onslaught of electromagnetic radiation. "Shields holding," Chen's voice rang out. "Barely." Harper, still locked in combat with Vextor, managed to pin the Vidian against a bulkhead. "It's over," he growled. "Stand down." Vextor's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. Finding none, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "You've ruined everything," he spat. Harper secured Vextor's hands behind his back, keeping a firm grip on the commander as he tapped his comm. "Liranath, status on those explosives?" Her voice came back, breathless but triumphant. "Last one deactivated, Jack. We're clear." Relief flooded through Harper, but he knew they weren't out of danger yet. "Chen, what's our situation?" "Shields are holding, sir, but we can't stay here long. The pulsar's output is still increasing." Harper nodded, though she couldn't see him. "Understood. Begin evacuation procedures. Get everyone to the rescue ships." As Chen coordinated the evacuation, Harper marched Vextor off the bridge. They made their way through corridors filled with confused and frightened civilians, Vidian and human alike. Harper's team had already begun securing the remaining rogue Vidians, who offered little resistance now that their leader was captured. Outside, the pulsar's fury continued unabated. The protective shield shimmered and flexed, a gossamer barrier between thousands of lives and certain death. Harper could feel the tension in the air, the fear of what might happen if their fragile defense failed. As the last of the civilians were transferred to the rescue ships, Harper received a transmission from Admiral Powell's flagship. "Well done, Lieutenant Commander," Powell's holographic image said, his face etched with both relief and concern. "We're not out of the woods yet. I'm ordering an immediate evac to nearby Alliance medical stations. We need to check everyone for radiation exposure." As they pulled away from the pulsar, its deadly light diminishing behind them, Harper allowed himself a moment to breathe. They had averted disaster, but at what cost? The political ramifications of this incident would be far-reaching. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Captain Sarah Chen and her team of medical experts. They had come prepared, bringing supplies of the newly developed genetic treatment for the Vidian degradation. "We heard about the radiation exposure," Sarah explained, her eyes scanning the crowds of evacuees. "These people will be our first large-scale test subjects." Harper watched as Sarah's team began administering the treatment to the Vidians, many of whom were showing advanced signs of degradation due to their proximity to the pulsar. The sight of former enemies working together to save lives stirred something in him. Perhaps this crisis, for all its danger, could be a turning point. In the medical bay, Vextor sat under guard, his expression unreadable. Harper approached him, sensing an opportunity. "Commander," he said, keeping his voice low, "you must see now that your cause is lost, but you can still do right by your people. Tell us where the hidden military caches are." Vextor looked up, his eyes meeting Harper's. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then slowly he nodded. "I will tell you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "For the sake of my people, I will tell you everything." As Vextor began to speak, Harper felt the weight of the moment. This information could be the key to neutralizing the last remnants of the Vidian war machine, ensuring lasting peace. The rescue fleet dropped out of FTL near the Alliance medical stations. As they began docking procedures, Harper received another transmission. This time, it was from the Interstellar Cooperative Council. "Lieutenant Commander Harper," the Terran representative began, her tone formal but warm, "the Council has been briefed on your actions. We wanted to inform you that an emergency session has been called to discuss the formation of a rapid response force. Your team's success has demonstrated the potential of our united strength." Harper nodded, the implications of this decision not lost on him. "Thank you, Counselor. We stand ready to serve." As the transmission ended, Harper turned to find Lyra Nath and Sergeant Chen waiting for him. Together they watched as ships from various species converged around the medical stations, all working in concert to aid the rescued hostages. "We did it," Chen said, a note of awe in her voice. Harper looked out at the diverse fleet of ships moving harmoniously through space. The crisis was over, but he knew that their work was far from finished. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the forefront of that change. As medical teams rushed past them, carrying supplies and tending to the needs of all species equally, Harper realized that this was more than just the end of a hostage situation. It was the beginning of something new, something that held the potential to reshape the entire galaxy. He turned to his team, a new sense of purpose filling him. "Come on," he said, "we've got a lot of work ahead of us." Together they stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.